Welcome to the Spherity podcast season, Product Passport Pioneers. My name is Susanne Guth-Orlowski and I'm Chief Innovation and Solutions Officer of Spherity. Today we're speaking with Mario Malzacher, co-founder of Circular Fashion. Amongst other awards, he has received the Young Leader Award in 2011 from the University of St. Gallen, and since then not a lot has changed. He's still a strong leader and currently drives forward the circular economy enablement for fashion. Welcome, Mario. I've been so looking forward to have you in this podcast season.
Hi, Susanne. Welcome. Thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here.
Before we start to talk about the product passport, let's tell the listener a little bit about yourself. What's your background and what was your personal journey to where you are today?
Yeah, you just mentioned it already. I grew up in Switzerland, and through that, I also studied in St. Gallen. I did bachelor with a mix of IT and business. I continued with a master in business, business innovation. So, and I continued with working for ABB as a process engineer, production developer. And during my master, I already started my first startup. And with doing that, I met my co-founder, Ina. And we started with a collaboration. She had a company designed for circularity, which became Circular Fashion later. And we started with collaboration, but after 1 year, we decided that we would like to do this together. So we co-founded Circular Fashion then. And yeah, now since then, I'm working on circularity.IDs. I'm working on intelligent sorting solutions, building up intelligent sorting stations in sorting facilities again. So also going a bit back to production development. And I'm doing this now since 5 years.
Super, thank you. You already mentioned something very important that maybe was not so noticed by everyone, because you created the Circular Fashion ID or the Circularity ID, which is a unique identifier that identifies, is it each circular fashion piece, each apparel, or is it a number of a number of apparels? What is it exactly? Because I think that's super important for what we want to do here together.
Yes. So the circularity ID is a mix of a couple of modules which we connected to each other. So what we did first is we worked on, and we call this the Circularity ID Open Data Standard. So what we did there, we talked to a lot of recyclers, to sorters, to repair companies, and asked them, what kind of information do you actually need that you can take better decisions on the garments which are coming back and prolong the use, or making sure that they are recycled. So we defined there what kind of data fields are crucial for that, and which format should you save that, so that we have an interoperable format to exchange these data between different stakeholders. So this is the one part, the standard, and this is where our platform is based on. So we build a platform where we can save those product data. So we get them from brands, we get them from producers, and we can make them then accessible to consumers. So consumers can scan a data carrier with an identifier in it. So with a web link, they will see a product site where they see where is this product coming from, what materials are in there, but also what can I do to prolong the use, and especially what should I do if I don't want it anymore? What is the right return channel?
Yeah.
And the last step is very important for us. We do not hope that the reverse supply chain is using this data. We try to make sure that they really can use them. And to do this, we build intelligent sorting stations which can read and get access to product data. And then our sorting stations calculate what is the best reuse channel for this garment, or what is the best recycling channel for this specific garment.
So you already mentioned a lot of things. Tell us a little bit about what Circular Fashion all does. You mentioned the platform, sorting stations. What is it all about?
So we are not only working on the circularity ID, we have basically 3 pillars, but probably I should start with our purpose. So we see our purpose in providing the missing know-how, the data flow, and interconnection to power circular systems for textiles. And we basically start in the beginning by helping fashion brands in creating products which are recyclable, which are made to stay in the loop. And we do that. For that, we have circular design services. Secondly, we want to make sure that these circular products really stay in the loop. For that, we developed the Circularity.ID, which I just shortly explained. And last but not least, we are going into sorting, where we are working with ID-based sorting, what I just explained. But we also looking into image recognition and spectroscopy to support better sorting decisions for a circular economy.
Super. And who are your customers?
We have different customers for different products. So for example, our circular design services, there we train designers, we train people in the purchasing departments in circular design. So we have trained more than 1,000 designers worldwide. I think we are a global market leader in this. But we also making sure that those brands can work in their daily processes. And so we created a circular design software. And the third part there is we have circular design criteria and circular product checks to check those products if they're really recyclable and which recyclers can recycle that. So there it's a connection between we are mapping the feedstock requirements from recyclers. So this is one target group. But we are also working with brands, and we are also working with material suppliers where we evaluate materials, fabrics, yarns, etc., if they're recyclable. So those producers of fabrics, for example, they can also use the circular design software to upload their materials into a circular material library. We evaluate them. Then the circularity ID is obviously for brands who are using this. And then last but not least, our sorting solutions is for textile sorters, which implement them to their sorting facilities.
And the sorting stations, are they also already, are they able to give some of the material back to the designers? Is there already a real loop that you created there?
Absolutely. So we still have to evaluate in which condition a garment or a textile is coming back. So this is still happening through the sorting person. They look at it, but what we can do, we can give them a kind of augmented reality. We give them more information about the product than they can actually see with their eyes or how they can touch it. So if they see this is still wearable, we can show them that, for example, a brand is willing to do a re-commerce service and buy it back and sell it through their own e-commerce store. So we can create a new resell stream, which does not exist like this so far. If
That's
it's not
wonderful,
yeah. If it's not wearable anymore, we can help to allocate these products to recyclers, which are able to regenerate the fiber. And this fiber can be bought back from brands afterwards if they want to create new products. And I think what is very important for people who don't know exactly the recycling industry for textiles, the current situation we are in is that we have actually less than 1% of the produced garments or of the resources we invest into new garments is actually recycled into new garments after use. So less than 1%. And now we are in a situation where we have new recycling technologies, which are very, very innovative. We have chemical recycling plants, etc. But they need better information what is in the feedstock. So they are not happy with how it's working right now, where a sorting person just taking in their hands, they're feeling it and they say, yeah, well, this is more or less cotton, it's more or less polyester. They need to know exactly what it is. And they might also need chemicals or hazardous substances inside, which have an influence, or the dye stuff inside, etc. And this is information we can deliver with a digital product passport.
Yeah, and I think circular fashion maybe cannot serve everyone on Earth who needs to have recyclable material, or who needs to have information, and therefore you're also engaged in at least two projects I know of. The first one is the Produktinformation 4.0, so Product Information 4.0, a German project, but also a project on EU level where you then start to leverage what you've done alone. I mean, without any funding, without any regulations in place, and now you're able to leverage that to the European level. Tell us a little bit, please, about the projects that you're in there.
Yes, absolutely. So I think first of all, I would like to say we launched this open data center in 2019 just because there was nothing else there.
Yeah.
But it's our position that we think we will need international standards like ISO, which will be globally rolled out, and we are very much supporting this. So I'm also very active on ISO level, DIN, etc. But you mentioned now these two projects. One is Product Information 4.0. This is a project from the German Environmental Agency. And they were looking for a project to evaluate how product information can be made accessible along the value chain to enable a circular economy. And we should do that at the example of textiles and energy related products. And what we're basically doing is we look into 3 layers. First, we look into product information requirements. So what information is necessary to enable such a system? Secondly, what technical requirements are there? So what kind of technical layer do we need to enable such a system? And last but not least, what kind of legal framework is necessary to bring such a system in place in the end? And we're doing that step by step. So what we do is we run workshops with a couple of relevant stakeholder groups. We speak to experts like you. So that's how we met, that we invited you for an expert interview. And we building a prototype so that the stakeholders can test it out, and so that the government can also learn, okay, what do we need to do to support such a system in the end? And the second system is from the EU Commission. Were looking for a CSA call, it's called, so Coordination and Support Action. And they want a consortium to work on the technical details and work on prototypes for a DPP system. We applied there together with a consortium of approximately 15 organizations. So we are not alone there. GS1 is, for example, there, Worldwide Web Consortium, Global Battery Alliance, etc. We have basically 6 goals in this project. We want to have a cross-sectoral definition and this description of the DPP. So we will look there into batteries, electronics, and textiles as industries again. Then we will secondly look into a cross-sectoral product data model, how this should look like. Then we will look into requirements related to product identification. Fourth, we will propose an open data exchange protocol. So how do we exchange data between different stakeholders and create interoperability between systems? And last but not least, we have key data for circularity related to European and global vocabulary standard. So vocabulary, very important as well. And last but not least, we'll look into use cases and how we can pilot and deploy such a system.
Yeah. And I think this was just recently granted. So congratulations that you won this together with your consortium. I think it's an important project to bring the product passport further. And you mentioned one important thing there, that the product passport concept is being built for different product categories. So for textiles, for buildings and electronics, I think, or what did you choose? I don't know.
Batteries, electronics, and textiles.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And what that already means is that on the lowest level, they have to have a common denominator so that the digital product passport information of different product categories fit together. It's also what the European Commission would like to see, that not in different product sections we have totally different technical solutions. So they want it on a very high level to be interoperable, which I think is absolutely the right thing to do when we think about the resource providers that, you know, maybe serve one material to a lot of different product categories. You think of that they have to serve a lot of different systems there. It's probably undoable. So I think that's one of the very good concepts of this call, which I like a lot. The digital product passport in general, what do you think of it? Do you think it has a good potential? What do you think about the general concept?
Yeah, first of all, I think what you just explained is absolutely right. I think the EU differentiates there between the DPP system, which is cross-sectoral, and the DPP data, which is specifically for certain branches. And we will need the specifications because you cannot compare a textile with a building. You need to have different data fields there. But still, it's important to have the layer on top. What do I think about the DGP in general? I think it can be an important tool to transform several industry into circular systems. It holds the potential to create consumer transparency, to enable sustainable purchasing decisions. It can help to make supply chains more transparent, and by doing this, enable fair and sustainable supply chains. I think it has the potential to steer products through the use cycle in the intended way, so that you actually prepare a full life cycle, including the reverse supply chain for your product. And the DPP helps you that this product is really going through like it's supposed to. And by doing this, prolonging use phases and increasing recycling rates.
The last point is interesting. Can you give me an example of what you mean there, that it's going through the way that was thought of the manufacturer?
Yes. So if you look at the status quo, a producer of any product, they are interested until the point of sale. And afterwards, there's some system in place which will take care of it or not. Maybe it will be incinerated or whatever. And the future won't stop there. We will have included systems where I think about the use phase. How will my consumer use this? I will stay in touch with my customer. And I'm already thinking about what happens with the resources after the use phase ends. Who is my partner? Because they are very different reuse potentials. They're very different recycling options. And you want to work with those who can work with your products. And you might want to gain back also part of the value. You can resell a product again, you can buy it back, you can resell it through your own channels. Or you can make sure that the resources are recycled and you try to get those resources again.
So we're running more into a product as a service area, I would say. Would you also agree that that's the right word to describe what you just said? I think we need also to find new wordings for what we're actually doing.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if product as a service is the right thing, as product as a service is often used as a term for when we rent out stuff, etc. I think it probably does not, for most people, when they speak about product as a service, they probably don't think about the reverse supply chain and the resources keeping them in the loop as a feedstock. So I didn't think about a word for that yet, or maybe something like loop business models, circular business models, something in this direction, I guess.
Yeah. And how effective do you think it will be the new eco-design for sustainable products, which regulations, which came out end of March 2022? It includes the product passport, everything that we've discussed so far. How effective actually do you think this will be?
So far, it's quite vague. So they keep a lot of things open. But like, how does it concern circular fashion? I think this ESPR includes like circular design aspects, and it includes the DPP, and both is very relevant with our services. So for us, it's important that we can help brands to produce circular products. That they can produce it aligned to these rules. And I guess these rules they're not defined yet, but I guess it will be rather a minimum you need to achieve. And we can also help them to be better, but we can also make sure that they can achieve circularity basically with a speedboat. And for the DPP, we can support brands in implementing this. We can help them to prepare when these rules become really mandatory at a certain point, that they have done that before and that they're prepared for it. And we have a platform which can be a part of that system, but we also see that a lot of rules, how it will be technically done, it's still completely open. They also don't say yet what kind of data carrier we're using. They're not saying what kind of identifier, if we have identifiers on product level, batch level, or item level, etc. There's a lot of uncertainty still there.
Yeah.
But we are trying to keep at the front and always having the latest information and shape this in a direction which really makes sense for the industry.
So this is basically one point that you would need from the regulation, that it maybe gets more concrete in some areas, because it leaves a lot of things open at the moment. But of course, maybe they don't know everything today because we don't have the technology, we don't have the knowledge yet. But with those projects, also with the DPP projects that you're in, we're gaining more knowledge, and with this we can adopt, or the European Commission can adopt the regulations then one after a while. I think the most important point really is a date from which certain things are mandatory, which is currently open. For textiles, it's different with the batteries, where we have a concrete date, but for textiles, buildings, electronics, and whatever is coming up, we don't. So I think I agree that there it is a bit open, and we need to have a date by when this is mandatory. Now we talked about the EU, maybe what you need from them. What do you need from other organizations so that the loop and the circular economy actually works someday? Do you have other players that need to work with you to make it happen?
Absolutely. I think in the end, we need an ecosystem where things integrate to each other. So to give you an example, with the circularity.ID, we are not going the full upstream, the full supply chain up. So we are not going back to the cotton farmer, for example. But the information we need to provide, which we will host on our platform and give access to consumers, to sorters, recyclers, etc., is sometimes not available for brands because they don't know their supply chain by themselves in a full transparent way. So there, an integration between traceability system providers and our system can be very beneficial. And the more brands are using such systems, the easier it gets that the suppliers get used to it, to upload information and host information, etc. So I think it's a step by step, and with every step we go coming from different directions, the more the full picture will be created. Another thing is standards will be so important in this to really create this interoperability and exchange formats, etc. And I see that standard organizations are doing a very good job, but it's also quite slow. So I think until we have really all the standards we need, it probably will still take another 4 or 5 years. But what I also see they're really willing to do this. So for example, if I can name that initiative as well, so the DIN, the German standardization organization, they just hosted a project called Circular Economy Roadmap, where we looked into, okay, what are all the things and standards we need to enable circular economy in terms of circular design, in terms of DPPs, reuse, recycling, etc. And I think I was in the lead of the textile group. Alone for the textile group, we defined 55 needs for more standards in this direction.
Yeah. And you just mentioned that obviously at the moment this is a central platform that you run where you collect the information about apparel. The European Commission is asking for a decentralized solution. Obviously, that's also one step that we need to make in future. Where do you see the potential of a decentralized solution compared to maybe a central solution that you have today, or maybe also drawbacks?
I think in the end it can be a mix of both. So for certain use cases, it might make sense to have certain centralized pieces. To give an example, I learned now from reading the ESPR that they're also looking into a registry platform where, for example, customs and market surveillance can get product identifiers and check products when, for example, a product goes through customs. But also what I, for example, see is if you look into sorting, sometimes it's quite time crucial that you get information in a very short time, because otherwise it's too slow for the process. And if you imagine that potentially products could come from whatever, from Bangladesh and any country in Asia, from other continents, sometimes it could take too long until they're there. So we might have pieces inside where we say, okay, certain data, we try to prepare them that they're in a very short time accessible.
Yeah, or maybe cache them, or you work with the data and prepare for your machines, right? It's the sorting machine that needs to make a decision within a second, and that's why you need it fast, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And on the other hand, I think the decentralized approach is right and important, because I think if I imagine would have a platform where everything is hosted, I see a lot of threats coming up there for data loss, etc. I think a decentralized system is in total it's more robust, and we just have to make sure that we enable all the actors which are out there, which are not experienced with decentralized systems, that we help them to host their data, make them accessible. And there's a lot. I think that's basically one of the big problems of the DPP. It could be too complicated for SMEs, especially, which are not used to bring electronic systems in place. And we have to make sure that we help them and that we don't make it too complicated from the beginning for them.
Yeah, I understand. And I mean, for them, they don't need to understand exactly that it's a decentralized system and what technology is exactly below there. I imagine that this will be, you know, a cloud hosted service where you somehow get access and you enter your data and then you sign it with your name, and you have that nice user interface that does that for you. Or for the company, and then I think the hurdle is pretty low, and I guess that's what we're working on with Spherity and our partners, to find solutions here that are easy adoptable, easy understandable, and so forth. So yeah, I see that as well. You already mentioned that for the standardization, we probably need another 4 to 5 years to have everything in place. Where do you see generally the product passport in 5 years and then in 10 years? What do you think where we are?
I think, or I hope that we will be ready in 5 years, that the DPPs can not only be rolled out for batteries. I think they're planned for 2026.
Exactly.
But we can also implement now at least the first industries, which are also in the CIRPASS project, electronics and textiles, that they will be ready.
CIRPASS project is...
This is the EU project I explained before. Yeah, the CSA call. So I think we will be ready to roll this out. We will start to pilot before. And I hope that in 10 years, we will see tremendous effects already. So that we have all the purchasing decisions, that we create transparency, that we prolong use phase, which, by the way, was decreasing for decades. And I hope that we can turn this trend around. And last but not least, that we can increase recycling rates drastically.
And now with the latest political situation that we have, there's also a shortage of certain resources. And the European Commission and everyone in Europe is talking a lot about resilience and how we can get independent maybe from resources from countries, you know, that are difficult situations politically. Is that also affecting the textile industry there? And do you think that the DPP can help achieve a better resilience for the European Union?
Absolutely, I'm convinced of this. I see like 2 ways how this could support resilience. One, I think the better you know your supply chains, and you know which paths they are going, the more you can also work on alternatives. So if one way is blocked, that I might have a second way how I can produce my products. I think that's one part how I can do risk management. Secondly, what you just mentioned is independence of resources. The textile industry moved in the last decades, the majority of it moved to Asia. And although there's still a lot of textile brands and companies in Europe and also in North America, and the production happens in Asia, and also like cotton and polyester are the two main fibers which are used. Cotton is also coming from Asia mainly. What Europe could probably, for example, profit, or also North America, if we recycle products, and there's a lot of recycling innovations from Europe and North America, that certain resources stay there, and it potentially could also stay there and be produced again in Europe for Europe.
Yeah.
And I think that will lower a little bit the Abhängigkeit in German, the dependency.
Yeah.
On these imports. I'm not sure, like certain people say, well, now we can bring back the full textile industry. I think that's not possible. The experts are not here. The infrastructure is not here anymore. But at least it could come back step by step a little bit, and that we start to produce more on local markets for local markets, because the resources stay where they are.
Yeah, super. I mean, you already mentioned a lot of things now. You mentioned risk management. You mentioned obviously resilience and circular economy. So I always want to stress that the digital product passport is not only a regulation that you have to comply to, and I think the industry shouldn't see it as a burden. I think it digitizes the supply chain, and it brings a lot of other benefits. Is there another benefit that comes to your head that we haven't mentioned yet, that the DPP brings to us?
I think every brand should see this as a chance. It's a chance to rethink their business, to do good. I think it's a chance to also create value of doing good. So I think the producers of products were always a bit afraid that their investments in sustainability didn't have return on investment. And I think we are now at the point where we can create a return of investment, because we can regenerate the resources which they can get back, and we can create re-commerce models. They can stay in touch with their customers. They can increase customer retention rates. So I think that there's a lot of value in this for them, and they're realizing this. And I think that's important to see it like that way.
Yeah. So I think we've come to an end with our interview, Mario. Do you have one last important message that you want to give to the audience with regards to your industry, what you do, the DPP, anything you want to share?
Well, I think, just as I said, I think it's a chance. Look into it. It's definitely relevant for everyone. The EU is working on it. It will come, and the earlier you start to look into it, the better you will be prepared for it.
Super. Thank you so much, Mario, for being with me today, for giving us all those insight about what you do. I really have a very high respect for what you're driving there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in the industry, and looking forward to speak to you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.